Okay, would you all rise and join us in the pledge of allegiance?
Yes. Okay, everybody, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
More important. Okay, we'll move on to the roll call. Our flag bearer.
Scott Foster,
Here.
Becker Zone being absent. Carolyn Madden being absent. Elizabeth Gallagher.
Here.
Jill Lippett. Scott Nevin, present. Jenny Nichols,
Present.
George Calise,
Here.
John Laughlin.
Here. That's it. We have a quorum. On the agenda, we need to approve the agenda. I would like to add, there was overlooked, George wasn't put on the agenda. Header. Sorry for the oversight, George. So with that correction, does anyone have any questions or comments about the agenda? Hearing none, we have a motion to pass the agenda.
I make a motion.
Thank you, Jenny. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Under the consent agenda, the only thing we're looking at is the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes, and are there any questions? Other than the spelling of the Walla River. This, by the way, was generated by AI. So bearing that in mind, and for a couple of typos, any comments? Concerns? Do I have a motion to pass the minutes?
So moved.
John moves. Is there a second?
I second.
Jamie seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Okay.
Motion passes. Agenda is approved. Okay, where are we now? Okay, anybody have a conflict of interest this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on. Okay, here's something. Let's see what they call. I'd like everybody to, if you have any, we're gonna go down the row here for comments by you guys about what's going on, what's important in your area, issue that's come up. If nothing's happening, that's okay. We talked about it. Would you like to say something?
Sure, I would like to
Good,
say
I'd like to
something.
hear something. from
So,
everybody.
I met with some constituents and, people have questions about what's going on with the road closure and on the dig ahead and whether or not there is a plan in place to notify the public about when that road will be open or what actions need to be taken in order to address whatever the issue is, because people are not clear what the issue actually is and they want to know when that road will be open again. So anyway, I said I would bring it up.
Thank you. Thanks. Just, we're not allowed to discuss these things because they're new, so. Thank you. On to Scott.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that involves the Sea Ranch and Sonoma County right now is the Sea Ranch is working with the Sonoma County Water Agency to possibly take over the sewage treatment zone that serves the north part of Sea Ranch.
Okay. John?
Two things. One, not necessarily a public comment, but the all MAC conference that was held about a month ago was incredibly informative, and I would suggest, at some juncture, we look at updating our mission statement for the CMAC here. And maybe there is a current one. The one that was distributed, I think was 2 or 3 years, at least 3 years old, so it may be useful. The county has been doing a great job of sending to residents notices of rental properties. You know, the rules and who to contact and all the rest, and that's been very well received. It has raised a question, though, given the I believe it's a 12% transit and occupancy tax, and the question is what flows out or what flows to the county, and then what flows back to the West County. And so that has been a topic that is garnered a fair amount of discussion, and so some information on that would be most helpful.
Okay, thank you. I guess it's just you, George.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to communicate with several of the folks from Coastal Seniors who provide the local Meals on Wheels, and they service both Mendocino County and pretty good portions of the Sonoma Coast. And I believe they've had communications with the supervisors and Shay and everything, and I would just urge that those communications and their needs be looked at and acted upon as expeditiously as possible.
Thank you, George. Elizabeth,
Okay,
do you have anything for us tonight?
yes, Michelle's kind enough to be my backup in the front. Great, we had a great pancake breakfast, that was to, take care of like Gold Ridge and Monterey fire departments, put money into that. As well, our basic fire department for this area. And then, we were able to, acquire 2 defibrillators for us out here in Gunner, so that's pretty exciting because we don't have like a really set fire department. Here in the like we used to, meaning set if we have volunteers.
Right.
But anyway, it's nice that, you know, we have Monterey that, you know, will help us to cover all this expansive space that we have, so.
Are they in public, are the defibrillators in public places or with the fire guys?
Michelle.
They're going to be, yes, one outside here. And we're looking at one at the store because indoors, that is open 15 hours a day. So less chance for it to be stolen or removed.
Yes, question about that?
Sure, yeah.
I just wonder, is there any training that goes with that? Are you offering that as well? That's a very good
Yeah.
thing, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so somebody who to use that would have to be trained to use it, or there's some information on using it?
It, as far as from what I understand with the defibrillator, it would be something that could just be, you know, introduced to.
The new ones are actually voice activated where it gives you step-by-step
Oh,
directions
oh,
by
okay.
voice. I don't know what.
Well, we are gonna have training,
Model.
but
But yeah,
it may be a day when someone who wasn't trained
Right.
uses it. So they come with instructions,
Yeah.
et cetera.
Great, well, thank
And
you.
voice would be great.
Yeah, do they?
They're all voice prompted. It tells you exactly what to do.
Clear.
They're very, very simple to use.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well.
Okay, I'm actually going to start with a few of the comments and questions from the MAC members today. And I was wanting to get clarification, Jenny, are you talking about a road that is actually up on the head state parks, or the road that we discussed last year that kind of previously connected residents down to west side? West Shore
Yes,
Center.
the
The
ladder,
ladder, okay.
yeah.
The ladder, so we did actually research that last year, and even though it had been traditionally utilized as a road, it actually is not a road. The county has no road, no right of way to actually access at that point. And so we actually went on a tour with Sonoma County Fire District Representative Steve Hertzberg, who determined that it was not actually needed for emergency egress, and that actually sort of the biggest threat to community egress for the hillside homes was the fact that people sometimes park along that road and make it sort of too narrow for emergency vehicles to access, and then also parking down closer to Spud Point, where we need to work on enforcement and signage to try to eliminate and mitigate constriction and bottlenecking there. So that is not actually a county road. We actually have no county right of way.
Okay.
And so even though it had been used that way for a long time, it actually wasn't.
Oh, thank
road,
you for
yeah.
clarifying that. So that somehow we have to get the word out that that is not a real, never was a legal road.
Correct.
And therefore, the plan is that there will never be a road there.
Yeah, and there's also, you know, a conversation, which we can't go into details, but about cultural resources that may be present just sort of in the area. And so it was kind of a combination of the sensitive habitat, the potential for cultural resources, and the fact that there was never a road in the first place.
Okay.
And so we actually had the county surveyor out. I was actually out there with Director Tennis Wick to confirm where the road ends, and basically the road ends where the pavement ends. And so there's no connection access, and I believe it is state parks property at that point, although I can double check. And there may be a county easement for just a trail, but the trail is down by the bay and has nothing to do with connecting the hillside homes to, and I don't know, remember if it's West Shore or West Side at that point. I know they kind of transfer. So
Okay, because
Yeah.
people didn't get that message, and so people are asking when, if, you know, what can be done, when will we find out, that kind of thing.
yeah, so we can follow up with you on that
Okay.
and share kind of the information that we shared back when the road initially closed, but it is
Okay.
not anticipated to be reopened, because again, unfortunately, it wasn't actually a road.
Okay,
And it is sensitive coastal prairie habitat. So,
okay, all right, well, thank you for.
and yeah, and then I think that there was another question about TOT, which is actually something that will be coming before the Board of Supervisors. That came up at the joint MAC meeting. I do not yet have a date or a meeting, but when I do have that, meeting date, we will definitely inform the MACs. We will probably also send it out in our email newsletter, because it's a hugely hot topic in Sonoma County.
Mhm.
We generate about half of the TOT in unincorporated Sonoma County. We do not get a lot of it back. But we also can follow up with specifics, because we actually do, we can kind of share, where those dollars go, roughly how much is generated. The only missing data point is that unfortunately our contract with Airbnb and VRBO, which is I think technically HomeAway or some other parent company, actually doesn't allow us to get geographically specific data for the sort of aggregated lump sums that we get from them. But you can kind of extrapolate out like what happens in the rest of it, so it's, it's rough, but still we generate most of it, and we can get you that information.
That's correct.
All right, back to my regularly scheduled plan. I did want to mention that, and this went out in a prior newsletter, that we did sign an MOU between the Sonoma County Water Agency, the Round Valley Indian Tribe, Mendocino County Inland Power and Water Commission, the County of Humboldt, Trout Unlimited, Cal Trout, and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And this will actually ensure that we continue high river flow transfers from the Eel River watershed over to the Russian River watershed, which will support the water supply for all of Sonoma Water's municipal customers, but will also actually ensure that we are able to meet minimum in-stream flows in the Russian River, which ultimately benefits the health of the estuary and kind of the whole region and ecosystem. And so it is a compromise. PG&E was going to shut down the Potter Valley project entirely, which would have meant just turning off the entire tap. Now we're going to have access to high flows, and we have received some funding from CDFW to start that process of kind of taking over and restoring the infrastructure, but it's still part of a federal process through FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, I believe. And so the decommissioning process and the transfer is something that's still occurring. Also wanted to share that, the Board of Supervisors has adopted the comprehensive update to the local coastal plan. That was back in February, and so the local coastal plan is officially in effect, consistent, with the Coastal Act, and this was following up on the California Coastal Commission's action that took place late last year. I do want to address that, a lot of the last minute back and forth changes surrounded a couple of really critical things for the coast, one of which is vegetation management and forestry, and the other of which is agriculture and agricultural fences, among other things. There was a lot of 11th hour, sort of conversations between Permit Sonoma and the Coastal Commission. And even though the language changed, we believe that the language change still meets our intents, which is to support vegetation management, not create unduly burdensome processes, and then also to continue to support agriculture. But I do want to mention, I've had some conversations with Beth Bruzoni and the Farm Bureau and foresters, like Matt Green. And my understanding is that there are other LCPs that will be coming before the Coastal Commission in the next year or two. We're going to be following them very closely. One actually is Santa Cruz, and they're trying to get sort of language that's more similar to what we originally proposed in terms of vegetation management. So if they're successful, we can always come back and amend our plan to go a little bit further than it does. But again, we believe that we've got kind of the wiggle room that we need in order to support those key priorities for our coastal communities. Next up, I do want to share that there was an ICE arrest in public lobby of a county department that took place last Thursday. This is, as far as we know, the first time this has happened in county history. The sheriff's office does comply with SB 54. He's put out a public statement to that effect. They actually have a new immigration website up that we can send out a link in our next email newsletter. And so we have, in the past, sometimes experienced ICE arrests just outside of the jail for individuals who were eligible for SB 54 notification. So SB 54 is a state law that basically tells the sheriff when he can and can't notify ICE of impending releases of inmates. And so, so we have experienced that where there would be a notification and there would be an arrest after this person was released from jail. This was the first time it's ever taken place in a county lobby, and it was a plainclothes ICE officer, and staff and members of the public actually didn't know what was happening until the person was already in handcuffs, and staff actually followed the ICE agent out to, where the person was loaded into a vehicle, white van with federal plates and tinted windows. And so it was quite a shock to staff and I think to members of the public who witnessed it. And so we are trying to, continue to reassure the immigrant community that we are here to provide services. But that can be very challenging. Now, we might have people who are supposed to report to the probation department, but are undocumented and then are afraid to actually comply with the terms of their parole as a result of this action. And we're worried that it could spill over into Health and Human Services as well, because we have a lot of public lobbies. But some of the things we're doing, we're trying to empower staff with information about what they can and can't do when something like this occurs. We're also looking into actually changing our spaces. So a great example is we have our West County Services Center, which is at the B of A building in Guerneville. And, right now we have sort of a very large public lobby area, but what we can do is we can actually make the public lobby area smaller and then have kind of a sign that says, these are the private offices, and then actually require folks to sign in order to go, back there. And then once you're back there, you're no longer in a public space. And so it would require actually a warrant for an ICE agent to enter the premises, whereas opposed to anybody can be in a public lobby. So someone from ICE can, somebody where you can't, refuse anyone in particular from entering the locality. So this was a sort of a shock to, I think, the county family and to members of the immigrant community, and, happy to answer any questions that you might have about that. Also wanted to share that we do have new CAL fire hazard severity maps are up. And they're sort of currently accepting comments about this. So if you go to the Sonoma County Fire Prevention and Hazardous Material Division, that's a mouthful, Fire Safe Regulations page, you will find our Office of the State Fire Marshal map local response map 2025. And so that's where you can find that. And you know, they claim that it does not affect insurance decisions, but I mean, I know so many folks who are getting bad news from their insurance companies lately, so
Excuse me,
we'll see.
could you explain what that is, that map?
Yeah, so basically periodically CAL FIRE revises their fire severity maps. So you know, sometimes we'll see areas of high fire severity. Usually it's an expansion of high fire severity. It's usually not a contraction. But they basically are sort of changing those shaded colors, which are, you know, high, moderate, and sort of lesser, and they're changing where those boundaries are essentially.
Have they changed the coastal number? They usually put a number on them or
Yeah.
color coded?
I have not sort of looked at
Okay.
specifically, but we just want to make sure everyone was aware of that process because you are able to comment on it at this point in time. And it's just a good thing for everyone to track and look up their neighborhood.
How'd I get to it again?
I think we'll go to members of the public afterwards.
Okay,
After we
perfect.
finish it, that's okay.
Is this, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just
Wait
trying
till
to,
Supervisor Hoffman's done.
yeah, can we let her finish her?
Oh,
report?
certainly.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Question.
All right, so I guess we can take questions at the end. So the last item is just that there has been a proposal to actually change our public hearing and administrative processes through the sort of creation of a zoning administrator, and then also shifting major project reviews to the Planning Commission and eliminating the Board of Zoning Adjustments, as well as the Project Review and Advisory Committee. And so some changes actually include extending permit terms in the coastal zone, clarifying appeal processes, and closing inactive applications. So the Planning Commission reviewed and recommended these changes. They went to the Board of Supervisors. We heard a lot of last minute concerns from the community that hadn't been vetted. So we're actually sending it back to the planning agency. And the planning agency is a combination of the BZA, Board of Zoning Adjustments, and Planning Commission meeting together, and they will all review that and have a public hearing. I understand sometime in April. I don't have a date, but we will send it out in the email newsletter once we do. And then it'll go back to the Board of Supervisors. So there's still an opportunity to comment on that. Last one, which is just an upcoming meeting announcement. I do want to mention that we will have an upcoming general plan meeting Tuesday, April 15th at the Bodega Harbor Yacht Club on Smith Brothers Road. And that will be from 6 to 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, April 15th. And that is about our general plan update. And even though the general plan doesn't apply to the coastal zone, we know that the coastal zone in many cases, one side of the road is in the LCP and part of the coastal zone, and the other side is in the general plan. So it's still really important to look at the interplay between the general plan and the local coastal plan. Plus, all of you, having gone through the LCP process, are now experts and can share your expertise to all the folks who are dealing with planning processes for the first time. And so that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions through the chair.
Well, thank you.
I do have one question about the ICE arrest. Do we know the status of that person, where they're located, and, you know, do they have attorney representation?
So I have been in conversation with the public defender, and we actually recently had, as the board last budget hearing, provided the public defender with funding to include deportation defense and immigration services as part, you know, as sort of what they can do. And so my understanding is that they will actually be offering representation to this individual. I do not know where the person is, but I do know that there was an attempt made as soon as it happened to notify, you know, family and kin.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to go back 1 second to the updates to the fire map. This is beyond Sonoma County, is it not?
It's the
This is-
entire state.
the entire
Cal
state.
Fire.
And this then relates back to the governor's proposal to redefine zero clearance around homes. I mean, ultimately, this is all part of that same initiative. Okay, thank you.
I mean, and this is actually something that CAL FIRE does regularly anyway. I believe that probably they've increased the frequency of these updates as things have shifted rather rapidly in recent years. And I mean, I think that there's a lot of state attention right now on what to do about the insurance crisis after what just happened in Los Angeles. So, which we will all be funding through our insurance payments going forward.
Any other questions from council? Any questions from the public? Yes, sir.
I just was wondering if you could repeat how to get to those fire maps on the Sonoma County site.
Yes. All right, let me reread that one. It is, so, this, if you go to the Sonoma County Fire Prevention and Hazardous Materials Division Fire Safe Regulations page, but honestly, I'm guessing that if you Google Sonoma County Fire Safe Regulations, it will probably get you to the landing page. And that is it is the Office of the State Fire Marshal map.
And if anybody wants to come grab a card, I can also just email you those links. That would be great.
And actually, Tracy from our team just sort of sent a text message with kind of a little snapshot of what it looks like along the coast. I think that's the after, but I don't have a before and after, so that's why I didn't know the answer to what was changed. So I mean, obviously, a lot of it is in the very high. Oh, actually, it does have little sort of slash. Anyways, we can share this, pass it around if anyone wants to look more closely.
Thank you. You got a question?
So, information I need is that we had Cal Fire, we also had Monterey came through the neighborhood a couple of times. You know, they would write properties up and you need to do this and can you do that? And, you know, we've been very diligent, spending thousands of dollars on landscaping around and getting the as much as we can in terms of protecting the property. The problem in Jenner is that there are a lot of properties that don't have houses on them. And when I spoke with the agencies, they said that they had no authority on a property that doesn't have a house on it. So I had my pristine boundary and then right next to me is this huge overgrown lot that's a fire hazard. So what I would like to propose, which I think would be reasonable, is that we have lots of properties along the coast, acres and acres and acres. I'm not talking about those. I'm just saying, can they make some type of a proposal where if a property is within a certain amount of feet or yards from another structure, that they have to comply with the same requirements that that property with the structure has to require?
We actually took on this topic. I think it was probably before the pandemic, so it's been a little while. And tried to make some progress towards addressing absentee landowners and vacant parcels with a local ordinance, but I need to look back and see exactly what language we landed on. That would be a Permit Sonoma thing. And so, so let's follow up after the meeting and find out kind of what the current status is of the local language, which is separate from the state fire code, which is usually what CAL FIRE or a local fire district would be implementing, to see if we have any civil ordinance overlays that can help you with that
The
problem.
thing that they shared with me is in Marin County and in Napa County, the way that they do it is if there's a parcel, there's no building on it, it's fire hazard because of brush and trees and everything. They then cite the landowner, give them a certain amount of days or months to come into compliance. If they don't, the county goes in
Does it, and then.
and does it and then puts a lien against the property. And they were saying to me that in those counties, that's been extremely successful. And I mean, I don't understand why we can't do something like that because, you know, it's ridiculous for me to have to keep my place pristine, but yet I'm gonna have a, you know, a fire hazard right next to me.
Yeah, and you're only as safe as your neighbor's property,
Correct.
and that's why it's important. for
Correct.
everyone. So I would love to follow up.
Yes,
And let's
absolutely.
loop in with Permit Sonoma, and if what we have on the books is inadequate, let's consider changing it and addressing it. But that was really our goal, was to address, you know, kind of derelict properties that were others.
Great, thank you.
That was great. Mr. Plum. you have a question?
Just speak to the action of the governor to suspend the coastal act for this calendar year and how it might affect us in Sonoma County.
That is.
Scott Farmer, Chris
Yes.
Mack.
That is an excellent question, and I will reach out to Carol Hart on the Coastal Commission and see what I can find out and circle back and report to you. I will also mention that Sonoma County now has 2 representatives on the Coastal Commission. Ariel Kelly, a Healdsburg councilwoman, is the North Coast representative. So we actually have 2 voices who can try to have those conversations. So.
Good question. Good, thank you for that. I'm saying there's no more questions, okay. We will now move on to public comments. Anyone has a public comment, you're welcome. Where do you want to stand?
If you can stand right next to Supervisor Hopkins, front and center, so the owl can pick you up. Please state your name and where you're from clearly.
So I have a comment after the presentation. That's different, right?
Yep.
Yeah. This is for stuff that's not on the agenda. Okay.
Did we not have any public comment?
Don't be shy.
All right.
We have a hand raised online.
Thank you. I forgot. Sorry.
No, that's
Annie,
great.
please unmute to speak.
Hi. Hi, my name's Annie Karubin. I live up on Bay Flat, and we just had about 20 of our neighbors at the Bodega Bay Grange Hall because we were under the assumption that this meeting was going to be there. To us, it's not a closed situation. Our concerns are fire, tsunami, earthquakes, the hillside behind the restaurants that's collapsing. We were under the assumption that hillside 6 feet in is owned by the county. And so number one, we're wanting to see if that can be fixed, if it is the county's responsibility. So what I want to say too is that what I have heard is that the Bay Flat Road up here, this used to be the main road, and it was the only road to get around the bay. And that was, the other road was built many years ago, but this was the main road. So when you said, Linda, that it's not a right of way, I mean, did the county own the dirt or the easement at that time is what I want to know. And if so, I mean, when did the county's lease expire? Could we get a copy of the lease? Who has jurisdiction on the land? I mean, for us, it's not over because we're stuck up here. Every day on a daily basis, we're behind cars that are blocking the road. If a large fire truck ever had to make that turn and get up this road, it's impossible. So what we're asking is, isn't there any way to make any kind of an emergency access going the back way? Because if not, when we have an emergency, we're going to be walking out. We will not be able to drive our cars. And just saying that that's done and that it's a tribal issue, I would like to know, like, what is going on with that? Why isn't there more transparency around that? And if there's a compensation that the tribe's looking for, what is it? And who's responsible for obtaining that compensation? So there was a lot of people that were at the other meeting, a lot of elderly people that live on this road, and we couldn't get up there fast enough to, once we were standing at the meeting at 5:30, we could not get to you guys fast enough. So I ran home, got on Zoom, but we're really concerned. So if we can come to the April 15th meeting and be able to bring our neighborhood and talk to you guys in person, that would be a good thing, because for us, it's not over.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other public comments? Okay. We want to our feature presentation is the.
You turn this on. It worked earlier, so let's hope that it works now.
It'll be right in their eyes.
Yeah, sorry, members of the MAC, it kind of got awkward with how we were gonna have to set this up, so if you want to move your chairs or
What's going
around, we're gonna be projecting.
This be a good spot, just sit over here.
Wherever works. We got a little stand if you need for notes.
Yeah, well,
Right, if I lower the projector a little bit. Yep, please do. Thank you for your help. How's that? Very good. Thank you. Yes.
Nothing's ever straight here.
That's all right.
There's no right angles in this building.
It's a carrot.
Yeah.
We're gonna start?
Start.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Calvin Sandine. I am the director of We Conduit. We are a 501c3 nonprofit on a mission to close the digital divide. This is.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Delzell. I'm a project manager working with Calvin and We Conduit, and just want to say thank you so much for having us out here and allowing us to present to you guys.
Yeah. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so just what we're gonna walk through is we're gonna tell you a little bit about who we are, what we do. And then Alex is gonna take over to as a nonprofit. We're not just about our services, but teaching and educating about the issue that we're trying to serve. And then we're gonna jump into our grant that we got for the community. It's the broadband infrastructure grant it's the hot topic. And then we're gonna jump into project details, kind of what we're looking towards, what to expect next. And then we'll finish off with a little Q&A. We're not just here to present, but we're here to learn from you all and understand and educate ourselves. All right, so the next slide. And then the next slide. So about us, We Conduit is a 501c3 nonprofit on a mission to close the digital divide. What we do, and Alex will cover what the digital divide is next, but what we do, we provide broadband deployment opportunities in unserved and underserved communities. So we will do everything start to finish as far as designing a project to grant writing and completing the application, creating the business model and the financial viability behind that. And then if we get the grant or we figure out funding, then we will walk through aligning all the contractors and bring this together through fruition. Then we also provide broadband adoption, so everything non-infrastructure related. We focus on digital literacy and getting technology out to communities. So if you don't know how to use technology or you just can't afford that technology, we help communities get access to that. Digital advocacy. So there's a lot of stuff that develops in the telecom industry on a state and federal level in terms of telecom legislation that unfortunately communities miss out on as far as getting represented and having their voice amplified throughout the implementation of those bills as they turn into funding programs or policies and regulation. So we do our part to represent the community, listen to everybody, and understand the boots on the ground knowledge that reflects into those programs that we created. And then we also support.
1 second, Cal, I just want to make sure that we can hear, the translator can hear, just because it's kind of far away.
I've not had any comments from translator, and I will ask them as well.
Okay, great. So sometimes I was looking where you are and where the owl is.
Oh,
That was my
gotcha.
concern. I've gotten text messages from translators when we were too far away.
Gotcha.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Maybe you just stand like in the middle, close to it. That will just help the translators.
You want me to project more?
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
I can go really loud if you want me. All right, and then we also provide special projects in the community. So everything that keeps it fun for us, but everything that aligns with our mission. So we look at supporting projects such as precision agriculture or emergency communications. We also support fire mitigation to make sure that we're maintaining around critical infrastructure and communication lines. Our vision is to empower communities with fast, affordable, and reliable broadband. When we started this, there was a lot of state and federal infrastructure fundings that were coming up, and we wanted to make sure that we had the vehicle in place to access those funds so our communities didn't miss out. Since then, though, we've experienced devastating wildfires, floods, storms, the pandemic, which has highlighted the need for connectivity at the house and throughout our communities. And it has shown that broadband is no longer a luxury, it is a necessity. It is essential to survive in today's society and economy. And so as we looked across on how to tap into these funds to serve our community, we're looking at various governance structures. We have the existing status quo, the privatized sector, but what models are out there where communities can come together to empower themselves to ensure local control over your infrastructure and ultimately your destinies. That's where we are starting to look at electric cooperatives or utility districts, stuff that we already have out there that exists. We see the benefits of it, such as our water districts. These are organizations that the community has oversight and control over the infrastructure to make sure that it's giving the best service at the best price to the community, what we all deserve. And so some other models that are local that we've seen are Scenic. Scenic is a California educational network that connects K through 12 institutions. They're a nonprofit that serves statewide. They have a fiber connectivity going to Fort Ross School. That's a model that we base this off of. Our late Tom West was the board of director. He was the original founder of Scenic. He also helped found this as well. And then we also looked at the Sea Ranch Connect model. The Sea Ranch owns their own fiber network serving the entire community, and then they contract out to a network operator out of Washington. And so we pulled these two ideas together to where we can get that community control and making sure that we're building out resilient infrastructure that is future-proof. A little bit about our board and staff. We have Mike Nichols over there. He's our board chair. Mike is a long-term.
Yeah, man.
Mike is a long-term community advocate. He's been involved in everywhere and everything broadband wise. One of my best mentors I've had since I started. And then moving on to Joyce Sterling. She is the CEO of Iron Horse Winery. She's also involved on a federal level with the FCC task force on precision ag. She's also in the rural caucus for California and a few other things, but she has great sparkling wine. Damien Bonnet, I'm sure you've heard of Damien's name before, but he's one of the lead programmers at Watch Duty. He also lives in the Coastal Hills. Grant Kirkwood, he also lives out in Kaz, but he's been in the industry for a while. And he understands enterprise networks as well as venture capital. So he's a great teammate. And then we have Alex Dozel, who recently came on in January. So he's just really brilliant guy that's been learning the ropes about the industry and how to help us out in a lot of the day-to-day projects. And then myself, born and raised here, just dedicated to the community and giving everybody what they want. Was raised in Cazadero, Russian River area, and volunteer with the fire department and just really passionate about this community. And then next,
If you can project just a little bit more, if you don't mind.
yes, sir. Alex is going to take over with a little broadband 101. So we want to educate you all on the issue. So Alex, you want to take it over?
Sure. Thanks, Calvin. Go stand a little closer to the owl. I know how these things work, so I'm sorry if you're getting a weird bottom up angle on me for everyone who's online. Oh, well, maybe I can stand.
There you go.
There you go.
I just have to navigate the spaghetti here. I'm not as confident as Calvin about remembering all the things I want to tell you, so I'm gonna cheat and have my notes a little bit here. But I wanted to talk to y'all a little bit about well, first of all, something that's a really simple question. Go to the next slide if you want. What's the internet? Obviously, I think we all have some knowledge and experience of what the internet is and how it works these days. But I think Calvin said something really important, especially these days. It is really almost a necessary resource for us to have access to the internet to thrive and survive in today's economy and modern society. So it really is something that we're very passionate about, making sure everyone has equal and equitable access to. But first, what is the internet? It's basically just a global network that connects computers, phones, and other devices to one another that accesses information, allows us to communicate, and allows us to share content. So we use it for a ton of things in our daily life, obviously. We can communicate with one another. We can get information from one another or from the greater internet. You know, Googling something has been a verb for a very long time at this point in time. It's synonymous with just getting some information or verifying that something's accurate. Obviously entertainment, lots of streaming services, video games, movies that you can stream offline. Obviously e-commerce, a huge market is available out there for online sales, not only for some of the big corporations, but for smaller companies or small businesses as well, can advertise and sell their products online to their customer base. Remote work, we saw a pretty big revolution of that over the last couple of years since the COVID era. A lot of jobs started to move into people's homes, and they were able to effectively get them done from there. So, and we're only seeing, we're seeing some varying trends there, but definitely a lot of people are still finding the ability to work from home and do it effectively. Public safety, obviously we've been relying quite a lot over the last couple of years on effective communication from our public safety officials, especially in CAL FIRE when it comes to some of the disasters that we've been experiencing, and having the internet available to us to communicate and receive that information is sometimes means life or death. You really need to have that information in order to know what to do in those sorts of situations. Healthcare, definitely something that's been revolutionized by the internet. I don't know if anybody else has experienced the convenience of a quick doctor checkup from your living room as opposed to having to drive into the office. I know, especially for some of you folks out here, might have to drive a ways to go and see a doctor. So it's nice to have access to telehealth in that respect. Obviously, navigation and tourism has been very much helped by the internet. I haven't been to Jenner too much, so I still Google Maps it, even though I'm just in Cotati. So it's nice and easy to get out here for me, just so I didn't get lost or anything. I'm directionally challenged for sure. But obviously, when you get out to someplace like Jenner or like Kaz or like Burnville, there's a lot of cool things to do out there. So a lot of communities might have websites or social media pages that can advertise nice things to do and helps with commerce in the area. Agriculture seems to be getting a lot of kick from internet as well. There's a lot of smart ways you can interact with the internet, not only between weather updates or information about your crops, when best to harvest, that agriculture and farmers are able to get. Education, we're seeing a lot more online classes, online tutoring, and obviously the internet is a big wealth of information to learn about just about anything. And the Internet of Things, you might not be as familiar with that, but it's basically a way to connect a lot of smart devices, sometimes just in your own home, to one device. So like from your tablet or phone, you might be able to connect your cameras on your property to see what animal just crossed through your backyard, or maybe you are coming home and you want to connect your thermostat and turn up the heat a little bit, or maybe you're at the grocery store and you forgot what was actually in your fridge and you got one of those cool smart fridges that got a camera in it and can see stuff. So I know a lot of different crazy stuff out there you can connect to the internet these days. So while we do have a lot of cool things that we can do to the internet or do with the internet, there's also a lot of interesting ways to connect to the internet as well. You can cruise to the next slide if you want.
Oh, did I go too far?
Yeah, there you are. So some of you might be familiar with some of the ways you can get internet. First one that we got on here is satellite. We know that some of the popular offerings there, like Viasat or Starlink, these are really useful for remote areas where, internet infrastructure might be difficult to get. Although it can be really affected by, the weather or certain obstructions in the area. So it's not always the best solution. Cable internet, pretty traditional, internet coming through your coax cable coming out of your wall. You can definitely get some seriously high speeds from coax if you have the infrastructure to do it. You could see up to what's called a gigabit speed, which when it comes to defining how internet performs, we usually use two metrics. It's both upload speed and download speed. So with a cable connection, you can get a download speed of up to 1 gigabit or 1,000 megabits per second. Just to contextualize that, the entire Beatles discography is about 2 or 3 gigabytes, depending on where you get it from. So if you wanted to download all of the Beatles albums at once with a gigabit speed, you'd be able to do that in about 2 or 3 seconds. It's kind of cool. DSL, probably gonna take a little bit longer to download Sgt. Pepper with that. That is that's kind of an older technology that is used, DSL. You're getting internet through basically your phone lines essentially, and the speeds just aren't quite as fast. It is available a lot more in certain areas, probably out here as well. And then the last one, which is becoming a little bit more popular, is something called fixed wireless. And fixed wireless actually uses radio waves to connect to the internet. And that's also becoming a pretty popular technology that's used in rural areas. It has some of the same restrictions that maybe a satellite internet might have, which is if there's any obstructions in the way, it might make it difficult to transmit a signal. But overall, it can be a really good solution if you're out in rural areas and want to have access to the internet. The one that I don't have on this slide here that I want to talk about next on the next slide is the one that we're most excited about. It's fiber optics. Fiber optics is basically transmitting data through pulses of light through a small, like hair thin glass or plastic tube. So that particular technology is one that we feel is an excellent solution to a lack of internet in certain areas. For one, it's really fast, it's really reliable. You can get up to those gigabit speeds on there. They're very durable and long lasting. The cabling itself is usually undergrounded when it's installed, so it's not as prone to any sort of weather elements that's going to degrade it or maybe have a down power line or something like that. They're also scalable and future-proof. The networks themselves are pretty easy to expand and future-proof. There's certain technologies that are up and coming that are increasing that internet speed. Gigabit is kind of like the gold standard of internet speed right now. But as we maybe get up to 2 gigabits, 3 gigabits, maybe 10 gigabits of speed in internet, the best part about fiber optics is that you don't have to go and dig up all that infrastructure and then reinstall it when those speeds get faster. It's ready to take on those higher speeds. It's also very energy efficient, but the one thing about it is it's pretty expensive to install. We talked about undergrounding, kind of like you see with some of the cabling there. That requires digging up trenches, getting permits, a lot of construction. So that's kind of the one downside. It's a really high installation cost, but once you get it in there, once you get a solid fiber network in, it can be really, really useful to a community. We also think that fiber optics are going to be really helpful in solving the digital divide, which I know Calvin mentioned a little bit earlier. The digital divide is essentially the gap between people who have access to the internet and those who don't. And that's usually caused by 3 main things, and that's availability, adoption, and affordability. So when it comes to internet actually being available, as you have probably experienced, many rural communities just don't have access to that high-speed internet. Comcast, AT&T, they've run the numbers. They don't think it's worth their time and worth their profit margins to come out and install high-speed internet in some rural areas. So they just don't. And unfortunately, those communities are kind of left behind when it comes to internet speeds. And even where you do have some access to internet or infrastructure, it can be really slow or unreliable. When it comes to adoption, simple fact is some people just struggle to use new technology. There's a lot of fancy devices out there that are really complicated and aren't always that easy to use. So sometimes people don't really have access to the internet just because they don't really know how to get there. And of course, affordability. Everything is getting really expensive, even the internet. And things just sometimes cost too much for certain households to gain access to. And not only that, we're talking about these smart devices. These things are expensive as well. So it can just be difficult and kind of a barrier for certain people to have access to these. And that can actually really have quite an impact on community members, on families, on a lot of people in both the county and the state. We'll kind of talk about that on the next slide. In fact, in California, there's about 2 million households, or about 15% of Californians, that still lack reliable internet access. And this also cuts pretty hard across both rural and racial lines as well. 28% of rural Americans and 25% of people in tribal lands lack high-speed broadband access versus just 1.5% of residents that live in urban areas. On top of that, 35% of Latino and 29% of Black households lack home broadband versus 20% of white households. And so what this really translates to is some of the stuff we were talking about that internet is good for earlier on. You know, you want to have a telehealth appointment, you might not have access to the internet that gives you the ability to chat on video with your doctor. So you're going to have to drive all the way into town. Maybe you even want to just have a video chat with your family who's across the country, but you can't even get it to connect because you don't have fast enough speeds. Same thing goes for education. If your kids can't connect to those online classes, to online tutoring, to just be able to research some of the things for their projects and their education, then they might fall behind. Overall, it's really important for us to have reliable internet access, which is why we're really, really interested in bringing it not only to this community, but other communities here in Sonoma and Mendocino County. And I think I'll turn it over to Calvin to talk a little bit about some of those projects.
Go to the next slide, sir. Closing the gap, and then we can go to the next one. Okay, so closing the gap. Because we've seen the impact of the digital divide that Alex was just talking about, the state made the Broadband for All, Internet for All initiative, which led to figuring out ways to serve those unserved communities and get affordable, fast, reliable internet services to everybody. One of the pieces to it is the California Middle Mile Network, which Golden State Net was the entity that was the resulting entity or that got created from that. It was formed to build affordable open access broadband connections through middle mile infrastructure across California. And so it's state funded, and it's over 3,600 miles of fiber network statewide. And some of the partners are Scenic, who I was talking about earlier, the educational network, California Department of Technology, and Caltrans. And the routes that they're building along are all the state highways. So Highway 101, Highway 116, and parts of Highway 1. And then their expected completion is also in alignment with our project by the end of 2026. And the importance of this is that it gives versus traditional networks, has public governance over the infrastructure. So it's connecting us all the way back to the San Francisco or Bay Area data centers. And then that gives us much more of a pipe of bandwidth at a much more affordable cost. So it helps us achieve those affordability pieces, accessibility for the community, and the just the long-term benefits of middle. Next slide, please. So then we applied for a grant through applied for a grant through the California Public Utilities Commission through the federal funding account. And we were awarded over $17 million to build out a broadband network in Sonoma County. Thank you. Thank you. Try not to cry because we've been working on this a long time.
In the bank.
Yeah. Oh, keep it in the bank?
No, I'm just saying is they're cutting right now a lot of funding that was already awarded.
Oh.
You know, if that is in your bank.
This
We're good.
federal, right?
Yeah, it's a
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get, yeah, good question, yeah. Good question. I've been worried there. Partners, we're partnering with Gigabit Now, who operates the Sea Ranch network. And we're also partnering with local internet service providers because our network is open access, which makes it open to anyone to use that network to your house, which increases affordability and competition. We've selected Cannon Companies as our contractor who's going to build it, but they're also hiring local. So if you know any local subcontractors in the area or people that need work or want work, please send them my way. We want to hire local. Our design is underground, 100% all the way to the home. And it's open access and it's a fiber optic network. Our locations, and we want to build it underground because, as we know, we have a lot of environmental concerns in our communities with trees falling every single winter, with fires. We want to make sure that this network is as resilient as possible. And then we're serving over 800 unserved locations, but we're passing by over 2,000 households that will benefit from the choice of additional provider. And then our timeline is end of 2026. Our goal is 18 months. So that would put us like June or July 2026. But as we all know, there's a lot of delays that can come up, such as weather or permitting delays. So I just want to be realistic that, end of 2026 is our, where we'll get it done by. And then we can go to the next slide. So this is just a blob on a map, but it shows the general project boundary of where we were awarded grant funding in Forestville. So Forestville, the distribution path is Pocket Canyon, Highway 116, Green Valley Road, Oddfellows Road, Martinelli Road, Old River Road, Summer Home Park Road, and other nearby roads. So if you know anybody that's near there, they're probably going to benefit from the service. And then you can go to the next one. This is the boundary for the Sonoma Coast. So it goes all the way from Jenner up to Cruise Ranch Road. And then it goes inland. It goes a little bit past Seaview Road. But that's as big as we could make the grant request before it got too expensive. But we can also expand out from there. So that's where the grant starts, and then we can expand out from there. But the distribution path is Highway 1, Jenner, Fort Ross Road, or Fort Ross and Fort Ross. Actually, no, not one. There's not a lot. We're going to be going now. Timber Cove. So Timber Cove, Munis Ranch, Seaview Road, Cruise Ranch Road, Myers Grade Road, and then nearby roads. So that's I know you're going to ask, like, is my household included in that boundary? We're going to be putting up a list so everybody can see their address if they're grant fundable. But realistically, if you are next to that, even if you weren't grant eligible, we'll still be able to connect you to the network. We'll just have to, as we develop the system, we'll be marketing and letting everybody know as we're deploying. And then next slide. So our service offerings, we're trying to make them fast, affordable, reliable, community governed. This was the plan that we came up with to make the financial viability work for it. We're a nonprofit. We're working at very low operational costs to make this work. But this is what we came up with. So the plan A is 100 megabits per second upload and download at $50 per month. The plan B was 500 megabits per second download and upload at $75 per month. Plan C for the gigabit speed is $100 per month. And then plan D is 25 download and 25 megabits per second upload at $15 per month. And that's the low income plan for anyone that qualifies for state or federal low income programs. And then we're also adding a voice service through voice over internet protocol, which is VoIP, at $30 per month. And then the business side will provide 500 megabits per second upload and download at $150 per month, and gigabit at $200 per month, and then voice at $35 per month. And our goal with this is to continue to increase the bandwidth that we can provide to you at the lowest possible price. So rather than seeing maybe quality go down and prices go up, we're trying to do the opposite, make prices drop, quality go up. So that's where we're starting, and we'll see where we can go from there. But it's all supposed to be community governed, so we're going to be creating a strategic committee of the community to help oversee the network and how it runs and it grows. So stay tuned for that. Next slide, please. So project details. Alex is going to walk through the details on like what to expect next, what the construction process is like, what to look out for, and then yeah, Alex,
Sweet. Thank you so much. Stand over here and block the other half of the audience. So what actually goes into constructing a fiber network? Because there is a series of infrastructure pieces that need to be in place in order for this whole thing to work. The first thing that you need to have is what's called a head end or a data center. That's something that's gonna be probably like in the Bay Area, South Bay. That is like the main connection hub to the greater internet, for lack of a better term. That's actually where that state middle mile that Calvin was talking about earlier is going to run out of and run through the backbone of California along its highways. Up, 101 for us, 116, a little part of Highway 1 as well. And it's gonna do that by just basically running fiber cable all along those highways. And eventually, it's going to get out to us, and we are going to install a fiber distribution hub, which is essentially a server room. It's basically, if you've ever seen it on like a, I don't know, I'm thinking of like an Ocean's movie or something like that, one of those heist movies where like getting into a data server. Either way, it's probably gonna be like a small concrete building, about like 12 by 12. That's gonna be climate controlled. It's gonna have just a bunch of server racks, a bunch of computers in it. And that is gonna be what allows us to have that connection to that main data center to get access to the greater internet. From there, we're gonna run additional fiber lines all throughout the roads that we're specifying until they get to some of the neighborhoods where we want to deploy some of that fiber. And it's gonna be deployed in some of those fiber access terminals, which is usually like a cabinet or a little box on a telephone pole or something like that, that allows us to kind of splice that fiber even further and then run it directly to homes via underground trenching. And the cool thing about this network that we're trying to create, something that Calvin kind of mentioned, is that it's going to be open access. And what that means is, unlike, Comcast or AT&T, who are going to wire up and install their infrastructure to your home and then not let anybody else use it in case somebody wants to change their internet service, like our service, our network is going to be open to all internet service providers. We'll like we saw earlier on the slide, we will have our own ISP. We'll be able to provide internet service, but if you'd like to go to another service instead of that one, you can definitely do so on this network. We'll still make it available for other internet service providers to provide that. And the reason why we really want to do that is to just increase competition. We've seen it happen throughout the country when networks are installed like this that are open access. That competition really does drive down the price. So that's what we're hoping to do with this network design. And then the next slide. So what to expect in terms of construction? Obviously, lots of trenching. There's going to be a lot of dirt shoulders that are dug up on the side of the road where we will install a lot of that fiber. In areas of the road that maybe don't have as much of a shoulder, we'll actually be digging into the road, usually using micro trenching, which is a little less invasive. It actually makes a trench about that wide. You can kind of see on the screen there, as opposed to one of the larger ones over there. And then, of course, we will be trenching drop lines to each person's house. Now, we might also be looking to to get a little help from some of our customers who might have some larger properties and maybe longer driveways. We might be looking for a little bit of help in that sweat equity to get some assistance to trench to their homes, because we might have limited resources to get all the way up, sometimes mile-long driveways to get to your house. So we'll definitely be looking for some opportunities to get some help, not only from those individuals, but also from other community members. And Calvin will talk a little bit more about what we're looking for there soon. Obviously, when this trenching is going on, when this construction is going on, there's going to be a lot of traffic controls that we're going to have in place. And again, we'll be looking for some subcontractor help in the area to get that done. Yeah, overall, we hope that once this is installed, we'll have a really solid fiber internet structure to get us some good internet. You go to the next slide. In terms of what the process is going to look like and where we're at right now, we're definitely still in the design phase. We've got a good high-level design of where we want to install this fiber, and we've done some good work to really understand what it's going to take to do it. But we still got to get all the nitty-gritty details ironed out. We're going to be working over the next couple of weeks, months to iron out that low-level design. We've had our contractors from Gigabit Now come on down here and look around the area quite a bit. Obviously, they were very heavily involved in the installation up in Sea Ranch, so they're really familiar with this area and kind of generally know what they want to do and maybe some of the obstacles that we're going to run into that we'll need to work around. From there, once we have that design in place, we'll know what sort of permitting we're going to be needing to apply for. We're going to have to take some time to apply for those permits and make sure they actually go through. And once we have all that squared away, we can finally move into breaking ground and constructing the network, actually getting out there and undergrounding a lot of cable. And once that's all complete, hopefully by middle of next year, maybe early or end of next year, we'll be able to activate the service and start using our high-speed internet. And I'll let Calvin kind of wrap up with how y'all can help out in this process.
So how you can help, you can provide local knowledge as we're building the network. We're talking with the community. We want to understand what some of the local concerns are. Maybe you know something that we don't. Most likely you definitely do. So please provide us with that local knowledge. It'll help us, with speed up the process, be more efficient in our work. My giant body's covering the presentation. Volunteer and work with us. We are a 501c3, so if you're interested in what we're doing, please volunteer. And if you have a specialty that you think can help us out, whether it's graphic design or marketing or legal or whatever, we welcome everybody. And our volunteer base, it's been growing over this last year through our different programs, and everybody is invaluable to this whole thing. So we want to make you feel part of the team, and we're all just community members, neighbors working together on our mission. You can also spread the word. Please let your neighbors know about what we're doing, and we're trying to build that community trust with everybody. We're not a giant corporation. We are a small nonprofit based out of West Sonoma County. And we're trying to help this grow and build momentum behind it, because we think it has a lot of value. And then lastly, please stay connected. Please go to our website and subscribe for more updates as we develop this. We want to make sure that everybody stays notified and is in the loop. We want to be transparent with this. And because this is for the community, built by the community. And also just will allow you to check out our website, because that's, if you are going to subscribe to the service, you're going to access it anyhow, so you might get used to the website. Next slide, please. And I just want to say a big thank you to everybody, the community. Big shout out to Mike and Scott Farmer over there. Scott I've been working with him nonstop for the last 8 years on this. Really appreciate him as a community member. D5 office, Supervisor Hopkins, Shay, you guys are all been super helpful in making this move forward. Scott, you've been working on this with me too, and Michelle. So I just really appreciate all of you guys, because this community means a lot. And yeah, I just thank you very much. If anyone has questions, but first off, there's our website if you want to access it, www.weconduit.org. And we also take donations. Thank you very much.
Can we hold the questions from the audience, please? We need to resume the board. So if the council can come back up and get their seats. Please. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I want to start with questions that we may have. Go ahead, Jamie, go ahead.
First of all, thank you very much for that very good presentation. Really appreciate that. Is the presentation available for us to share with the public?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be great if you could get a hold of that.
Yeah.
And two other questions I have. Do you have any specifics on the type of fiber that's being laid? And do you intend to make it redundant?
Yes. the specific type of fiber, in the middle mile, is going to be 288 count fiber. Before I move on, is that kind of the specifics that they're looking for?
Well,
Or you're
there's like really lots of different type of fiber that can be laid on the ground, and I'm just wondering what is being spec'd or proposed or suggested, and where is that in the process?
Right, yeah, so, the fiber count is gonna be different, kind of community by community. A lot of the drop fiber is gonna be the same. But it's all gonna be, jacketed, fiber with, gel infused to keep out water. It's all single mode fiber. And just depending on the routes, some are gonna have a higher fiber count than others. So, as we get into the distribution areas, it's gonna be a PON network. So, passive optical network, is what we're looking at. We were weighing between passive optical versus a home run Ethernet architecture. But we're still in that design phase. So right now, we're currently looking at a PON. We think that there's a lot of it'll apply well to the community. It gets to a point where there's more complexities with the designing and the what's really necessary but this will be future proof is what we've got to with our current design. Is that
answer good?
Maybe I can follow up and get more detail, or in the, I don't know if that's part of the volunteer or the sharing information. The architecture of it would be useful to look at.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll, I think it would be a good piece of the strategic committee, if we have volunteers to come and work and look at the network. And then as we work with internet service providers, we'll be able to share that information so they know exactly what's in the network, but it is still currently in design. So as soon as it's finished, we'll have a better, we'll be able to share that.
She was in the business, Calvin. She's being shy, not sharing.
I kind of said it.
Hey, come right up.
I was like, wait, before I go into too much.
So,
Is this
useful
a
volunteer
industry question or, yeah?
No, that's good. Thank you very much.
Lucky to have you. Thank you.
John, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. It sounds like an absolutely terrific project and obviously much needed. I'm curious, because you referenced that it's, really subject, it's intended to be community governed. And I'm wondering how that manifests and what the transition is from the 501c3 to, the governance structure, and what does that governance structure look like?
Yeah.
Because I think you've raised, a lot of expectations and inevitably you acknowledged in this project, there are going to be phases. It depends on where you live, who makes those decisions. I mean, it's wonderful, but God is in the details.
Definitely, yeah. So right now how we see it happening is one, we have the board of directors for We Conduit, which is the community members, but also I kind of look at it, one of our programs is the working with the North Bay Communication Cooperative, which is we have a really big team of community members representing various organizations and agencies. But it is that organization helps to deploy our emergency communication network throughout the county for GMRS. And so it's all of these voices that come together to oversee the network. And we meet monthly. So I'm seeing it as something like that, where it's a strategic committee of community members that all specialize in different areas, whether it's technical or marketing or this and that. And so we're all just being transparent with each other, but able to share that with the.
Right, no, and I appreciate that, but the rubber will meet the road in the sense of where are you going to do the drops? Who is going to get served in what order? And so I'm interested how that interfaces with the notion of community governance.
Oh, as far as the rollout of the project and who gets served first versus.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That's a good question. I don't have the answer right now. That is something we are trying to figure out with our team, but at least after the construction phase is done, that's our plan. During the construction phase, I have not thought about it. So that's a good question.
Great,
I'll talk to
thanks.
our team. Thanks. But long-term, we are also looking at, finding other ways to, finance infrastructure that's outside of grants. So we're even looking at developing a telecommunications cooperative as an additional vehicle, which a telecom cooperative, the consumers are the owners of the infrastructure. And so it's another financing vehicle that we could partner with this nonprofit. And that is more of a directly community governed infrastructure. Nonprofit network is a little different, but we're trying to make it work.
Does that notion extend ultimately to things like cell service? Because that's as much as this need addresses a critical gap. And it's hugely important, basic, in the same way that the internet is the same as water and sewer at one level. Cell is the same thing. And here in West Counties, we are horribly represented by the major players.
That's something we've been thinking about, and how to work with those providers. And so we meet with them. That it's a little different of an animal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that we're trying to think about.
My plea would be think big.
Yeah.
Don't think small, think big.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So that's something we're also trying to figure out how to use this to expand cell service or any other applications where it could be utilized for the community, whether it's fire cameras or this and that. So we are definitely trying to think of all the potential opportunities with this network besides just internet, because the fiber optics and the internet has so many applications.
Yeah, I don't actually have a question. I just have a comment. The fiber optic is a huge enabler. Scott Never from the Sea Ranch, and you picked a great partner with Gigabit Now. They are terrific people. I've worked with them for many years, and they're just good people.
Thank you. Yeah, they're great guys, and they're super flexible with every model, every entity that's trying to do something different. They're just a great fun.
Yeah, everything that we asked of them, there's like, we'll figure out how to do it.
Yeah,
that's the kind of people they are. Yeah,
totally.
George, you have anything? Elizabeth?
No.
Anyone in the audience have
a question online.
Okay. Go ahead, ma'am. Can you say your name and where you're from?
Francesca Scalpi, I'm from Jenner, I live up the street. And we use Starlink for our internet provider. We were just informed in our neighborhood that AT&T is getting rid of the landline service. They're gonna stop providing it in California is what one of our neighbors was told. And telling everybody they need to move over to cellular. And that if you're using Verizon and you call them and you're not near a tower, Verizon will give you a free network extender. That's sort of like their solution to that. The second statement I have is that in the area that I live on Rockland Drive, which is up by the headlands, and in this area of town, we have had ground movement, landslides and whatever. So when you're thinking about doing the trenching and things like that, you may want to have a geological team as part of that infrastructure to make sure that wherever you're going in, you're not going to lose everything because that area is in a fault zone or has a history of ground going down. Our neighbor across the street just years ago had her whole backside come down. So it is a prone area around here. So I would advise having a geo service.
Thank you. I had a couple questions. Are you gonna be able to use any of the existing fiber out there and, buy a piece of it, or are you putting in all new stuff?
We're putting in all new stuff. The state middle mile, I believe, is utilizing leasing existing fiber from here to the Bay Area data centers. But we are building all new fiber.
Okay. Second question, this grant that was just awarded, it was 17 million, was it?
Yeah,
For two projects.
two
For
projects.
So
Yeah,
there's
two
like
projects.
13 for the north and something. How far is that? That doesn't sound like it's gonna, is that enough to put all this stuff in, or is that just the planning phase, or what's that gonna buy us?
So the state, one of the bigger routes, Highway 1, that's been covered by the state. And then the rest is all gonna be covered by our grant. And we've walked the area, and our contractor has said that feels comfortable with the budget. Thinks we can make it happen. But as Alex alluded to, some of the driveways that we might go up against might be a mile long. So we want to just be, because we're a nonprofit, sometimes these projects, especially in the rural areas, they're shooting in the dark. You can't see everything. So if you know a neighbor or you're in that position, we just ask for your cooperation with maybe looking at helping us. Maybe we can dig a trench, or you can provide sweat equity. We can provide you the materials and the construction standards, or maybe help us dig the trench down your driveway. So we're just looking at those various opportunities just to make sure that we have enough resources to go and speed up the project too. So because if you decide, I know exactly where I want to dig this trench, you do it for us, and then we show up, we pass by your street, we can just lay the fiber and conduit. That'll be awesome.
Okay.
But we can also build it, trench it to your house.
Is above ground an option?
We're looking at, for the drop, we are considering that. Our goal is to underground it. But, in the event that, maybe a above ground drop is feasible, we're open to that too. We just have to make sure that it aligns with the state, grant agency requirements as far as our grant.
Okay, thank you.
I have just a comment.
Oh, okay.
As Cal said, we've been working on this for a while, sharing.
Speak up a little louder.
Louder. Scott Farmer and your.
Right, how's this? Scott Farmer, Cruise Ranch. It's been decades that we have begged the Comcasts of the world to bring real broadband to our coastal communities. We were repeatedly told too far, too few. Access to the fiber that did come to the coast was repeatedly kept from us. Their business models just weren't meant for rural deployment. We continued to evaporate as viable, complete communities. Enter We Conduit. Calvin and Michael recognized this failing in market thinking and formed We Conduit, a 501c3, with a mission to enable fiber optic internet to reach everyone, everywhere. Among the competing grant applicants for funds here, only We Conduit kept their focus on reaching everyone, everywhere. That is you. I believe that their ethos captured the imaginations of the California Public Utilities Commission staff and led to their recommendation to approve this project's grant. As the commission voted, the chair of the CPUC stated that this local effort was especially appealing and thanked them. Understand, this is a new model. There are a couple of projects nationwide that have similar local intent, but this project, our project, cracks the broadband business model. We Conduit announces never too far, never too few. Thank you, Cal and Michael. Now we can do it.
We have one question online.
All right, Kate, I'm going to unmute you here. Kate X. You can speak now.
So, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, this is Kate Heck from Bodega Bay. I have a similar question to the implementation question that one of the board members answered. Is your intent that this project would pay for itself eventually from the people who sign up? And if that is the intent, would you then expand it to other communities along the coast, further south?
Correct, yeah, so the network revenue is intended to help expand the network. It'll pay for operations. But the idea is that we're investing into the network to expand it into other unserved communities. But it's not enough it'll be enough to finance and leverage other loans that we're looking at. So that'll allow us, it'll provide us some cushion, but it's not going to provide us a lot. It's because of the density of the community, it's not going to be it'll be a portion of the revenue, but we're looking at other financing to expand into those communities. We're looking at grants as well, such as the BEAD grant coming up, but you know, with how the grants are evolving and administration, we have to focus on other things besides grants. And so we're looking at those innovative financing mechanisms that will allow us to go into those other unserved communities. So it's a combo of multiple different revenue sources that we're looking to expand off of. But if anybody is a fundraising / finance person in the group that wants to volunteer, we could use your help. But I think we have a good network of resources and people that are interested in helping us on that too. So.
Okay, thank you.
Have you announced that there's going to be any other public non-MAC meetings?
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm hoping that you'll be able to bring this presentation to other places in the community. I plan to ask you to come up to Timber Cove.
Yeah.
Next month and have a community meeting that's not a Brown Act, not an Act meeting, just explain it to everybody. And I would encourage my colleagues here, if they would like to set up the same thing, that would be very useful. Because I mean, this is just too hard to get through for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But we look forward to that. This is a wonderful mission you have, and it's nice to hear that but not surprising that it's unique. It's really something to be proud of.
Thank you.
Yeah. If this presentation could be taken on the road to actually more, places on the coast, people want to know about this, so.
Yeah, rumors are flying and we just got it.
And people would love to be able to, post you in the Big Bay, for example, and hear again about it. So.
You could also record this and put it on YouTube and put it on your website. And so people who are interested in it could be sent to that and they could watch it at their own leisure, whenever they're at a place with good internet access.
If they have.
Great idea.
Good job.
Great idea. Thank you.
Okay, we'll call that it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Mike Flynn, 2885 Bay Hill Road, Bodega Bay. My partner, John Peterson, and I are in the cellular tower business. We are and have been looking to place a facility here in Jenner. And although we wouldn't compete with what they're trying to do, but at our site in Bodega Bay, we have AT&T fiber. And we can connect that through wireless means, microwave, to a site out here and provide all of the bandwidth that would be needed for multiple wireless carriers. Those would be AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, and all those guys provide internet service. And what they do it at is, again, not in competition with fiber to the home. But they do it at multiples of the people served at fractions of the cost. And our site there in Bodega Bay, we have Marin County, we have Sonoma County Emergency Services, both of the emergency services for the two counties. We have Verizon and AT&T, Pacific Gas and Electric also uses our facilities in order to do a lot of their wireless connections. And so I would just, my purpose in standing up and talking about it during this is, has anybody approached the town about building a tower facility? And what has been the reaction of the town? Is it supportive? Not. This facility that we kind of have been doing preliminary design on would be very tall. Because we would have to reach all the way back line of sight to Bodega Bay. But it would be a single tower that would probably extend quite a ways towards Bodega Bay. And as you can tell, driving the highway, our site covers north of Bodega Bay quite a ways. And we would have hopefully have connectivity between the two sites. So
Thank you. Can we, after the meeting, there's gonna be a lot of people who want to talk to you.
okay, thank you for letting me.
Yeah, no, that's good. And more is better. We like that. So, yeah. 'Cause we can't really get into a discussion about that.
Absolutely.
But afterwards, great. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I just want to say hi, everybody. Michelle Irwin from the Corner Community Center Board of Directors. Thank you for coming out tonight. But I just wanted to mention history 1 second here. I won't take too much time. 9 years ago, our tech committee here at the community center, we're working with Calvin and others, but Calvin predominantly. And we were working on a model from Sea Ranch at the time, looking at yours, saying, how could we replicate it? And in tech world, you know, when you're on the cutting edge, or you call it the bleeding edge, 9 years later, here we are. So, and the other point was, I wanted to thank the Jenner residents who at the time, we count about 100 people in downtown Jenner. So it's easy to do percentages. So we got about 60 to 75% of our residents wrote letters of support for We Conduit in about a 2-day turnaround, which for us was hard because we were emailing people, calling people, let's do this. And so I want to say we were there with you at the beginning, and we want to stay with you, and certainly, you know, our proponents for what can come. Thank you.
That's very good. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, folks, that's the end of our regular presentation. We're going to continue the meeting. We're going to be talking about scheduling for the rest of the meetings, and we're going to be talking about our own ways of engaging our community. So if you came here to listen to that, that's great. If you want to sit and listen to us talk about meetings, this that's great too, but this is your chance to excuse yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Over, everybody. We're gonna continue. Yes. I would like to, maybe next time set this up so we can see each other a little better. I want this to be a meeting of us rather than a performance for them. And if they want to watch us at a meeting, that's great.
Like the
I would
highlight.
like to talk. So,
And look, I'm so amazed. at
be sure to just take 5, take 5,
Oh, yeah.
and then come
Not
back
too worried
back.
about
and
it
we'll,
walking around the small town.
We're recessing for 5 minutes.
I can't see where you're. We have to take it apart.
Linda.
I wanted to complain.
Sorry about funding, it's, so depressing. I thought you were like, okay, I like wrote you a text message and I think I did hit send. And I appreciate
Where, you know, yeah.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
you
you
know,
always make me smile. I'm just so grateful for your work and your dedication. You and Mike are like in the sort of champions that serve on the most committees. You're the most good as community volunteers.
Thank
but-
you. I mean, that's why. I can't.
I know. So we are resubmitting that one and we're hoping that kind of if and when earmarks ever open again, that, you know, possibly resubmit the ones that were canceled because that would only be fair, right? Yeah, it was just like, we worked so hard. We had him out, he came and, you know, talked to him about how important it was. And,
This whole thing is really just absolutely mind boggling. I mean, I'm just sitting, you know, and.
so depressing.
Like I said,
That's why I don't get it. Government really does do something to you. It's not always right, and that's why you fight it. It's not why you destroy it, though. I mean, burning it to the ground means that you take away all the good things that can happen too, you know? And it's like the ice house is such a great example. And it's something we just can't, we don't have funds for locally, and that's why we pay into the federal government, so that these things become collective good.
Very good. Thank you. I see nobody's here. This is great.
People online, very interested.
Well,
There's two people, there's two attendees online.
Okay.
all right, there's a couple things that came out of the MAC, the all MAC. Meeting thing that we had. Was, in my view, a wonderful experience. It's something that I hope that they can do. Maybe in 6 or 8 months, maybe, or at least annually. But for those of you who weren't there, the gist of it was that all the MACs in the county were invited, the leadership of all of them were there, plus a bunch of people. And they talked about, initially, they spent a lot of time talking about the manual, what they call it, for how to run the internet. There was a lot of hair splitting going on. But overall, best practices. Good document, and the draft, I think it went out to everybody. It looks, it's worth a serious read once. So you know what's in there. So I recommend that. The second thing that happened there was, in my view, they had listed some issues that came up for discussion. Things that the various MACs interested in and wanted to have a discussion about. So what they did was they divided up the whole group, there were maybe 50-some people. They divided it up in tables, so it's 5 to 10. And everybody, your table was from a different MAC. So what I immediately appreciated was the way everybody in the MAC was different. And the way they approached issues. Some of them were single issue kind of MACs, and some of them were multiple issue kind of MACs. We're unique in that virtually all of the other MACs are geographically sort of centrally located around something, around a community. And so gathering everybody together is not difficult. And having uniform sort of problems, issues, and things they need to have the time to deal with, it's a lot easier to come by than what we have is, we're all on the coast and we all have highway one to deal with and all the coastal stuff. But also every one of us has different priorities. And I think we have to recognize that, which is why, moving up and on the coast is a good idea. But, and then the other thing I really appreciate about this is hearing the different levels of support that people got from elsewhere in the county, depending on their supervisorial district and staff that they had. I think turns out we're very fortunate to have the District 5 staff. No, really. I mean, because there were people who were.
There were some that.
No callbacks.
No, nothing. So we are in a better place.
So I really saw this as we have, somewhat unique, and we have an opportunity to to really do some nice stuff. Right? And so that led to a discussion of lunch with Jenny and John and Beth and I. We talked about how great this was. And maybe what we need to do is think about, other than just meeting 6 times a year and sitting here looking at each other, is that we use the off month to engage our community. It's
not like we fish or people can't really handle bad fish, like, it's not like they have some reason to think it's like anything. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, so it's not a Brown Act thing, it's just a community reach out.
A listening opportunity.
Yeah, listening and then filling in the community on, hey, this is what happened last meeting.
They're actually sort of increasing your genetic diversity, like, it's actually fundamental natural evolutionary process. Like, it's like yours, and that we have most why.
One of this like by accident. And so I think we need to do a better job of, gathering up.
I think on that same point, listening to the woman that was speaking about, Bayville Road and saying there were, a number of people at Grange tonight.
Right.
It speaks to, because we're constantly, and we should be rotating, but it makes it very difficult for, people that live in the community to know, are they here this month? Are they not here? Where are they? Where's Waldo? So I do think that this notion of some type of off-cycle, and whether it's 4 or 6, I think part of it is let's try it, before we commit to 6, let's see if this works. But it creates a little more a clear set of expectations where you're gonna be, it's less formal. So it's a little friendlier for people that are, that maybe be more willing to speak up in the absence of, a group of people sitting, and separate from the audience. I don't know, I think there's some merit. Personally, I think that's one of the things we talked about at lunch.
Right. And also
because the issues are different.
Right, and in that, continuing that, train of thought, in a formal venue to go to have a cup of coffee and talk about what's going on. Yeah. That kind of thing.
This year, it's like that as far as trying to get, because there's so many people that are not here most of the time. But when we seem to have a big group sort of meeting and everything on the weekend, say on the Saturday or something like that, like we've done in today, a lot of, put this meeting together, but then you invite the whole community. Or, we have it as the community meeting.
Yeah, right, and just come and talk to us, not, there could be an agenda or not, depending on, what's going on.
Well, yeah, Timber Cove, there's the Sunday market at the Great School, and coffee, and it's basically the weekly cocktail. And if you don't go there, you don't know what's going on. But everybody in the community knows that the MAC. So I always go to that, and people button me about whatever their thing is. That's great. Hearing this today, what I want to do is next month, on Sunday evening, at the Great School, just have a Timber Cove community meeting on, with a presentation by these guys. And they can ask questions. And I can say, okay, who's got an issue with anything else you want to talk about? But just use it as a once a month, some kind of, even if it's, hey, I'm gonna be at the Fort Ross store for 2 hours on Saturday, if you want to stop by and tell me what, what's going on. So
Suggesting a presentation.
I really like Chris Roger.
I'm not suggesting anything. I'm leaving it up to everybody to see what would work for them. Because we want to talk about outreach and engagement and community. So let's use that other month to do something. And then we come back here for the regular meeting and we go down the line of, hey, what's happening in your community? You got something to say.
And actually, if you want to have like, I think it's
Report out.
actually
You report out.
Yeah.
5 roosters to, or one rooster
Hold each
5
other
minutes,
accountable.
and if it's light breeze,
Well,
1 to 10.
yeah, I mean, this is gonna work differently in
Roosters
different
for
communities.
acre, and they're, but like. but
Well,
then
I would like us to start,
you have to prove that
being recognized in the community as, hey, you're the go-to crowd.
And I think, that's part of it, using these.
Are doing the right thing.
I mean,
because someone else is
personally,
doing the wrong thing.
I live in Bodega, it's sort of, The equivalent is in a college town counting down. There's the town, there's the Dave Harbor, never the twain shall meet. Not really, but how do you pull these things together? And this is another way of getting people to recognize that there's stuff in common, and that we need to know each other. It's a very basic level. The other benefit of doing this, I think globally, is to be able to explain and if you will, promote the MAC in the sense of defining what does this group really do? And I think it does go to the, I mentioned that I think, we should, and I'm happy to participate if the group thinks this would be useful, but a very simple mission statement, just, so we can say, this is what the MAC exists for, for the coast. But I think that I talk to a lot of folks and they're, I've heard of it, but what does it do? That kind of thing. There's lack of knowledge around what it is we're trying to accomplish. So I also see this outreach as sort of planting some seeds and getting people to recognize, if they've got an issue or a question, well, there's this person that actually, might be able to help us provide some feedback.
On following on that, we put the agenda together.
Language of government
For these meetings.
Yeah, right? It's like they do what they do, and they know it way better.
What I'd like to do is, as we rotate, where we're going
Right,
next.
it's frustrating, which is
Stay
understandable, that doesn't.
We're going south, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's the next agenda item. It's
Yeah, but
reaffirming that you guys are gonna do prediction.
yeah, well, we are, but we're going south, right? Isn't that the?
We did see Rand.
Yeah.
It's a different code.
And then we did.
Agenda code is the medical one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next agenda item is 2025 meeting schedule, which should probably be an item considered.
Yeah, well, we'll make a decision and then we'll vote on it. But what I'd like to do is the host facility
You just created a problem where there was.
is an opportunity to highlight whatever your issue is. So when we put the agenda together and we're going to the Great Bay next, have somebody talk about the fishing economy or whatever. That's your chance. And then if there's a second kind of thing that's universal to all of us, like county roads or something like that, general plan, that kind of thing, we also have that. Absent something local, which I can't believe that would be the case, but absent something local will come up with that. But what I'd like to do is, as we approach, and I want you to think about this as the year goes by, as we approach the old months, as we host, think about what you want to have there, because your issue is going to bring your community to that meeting. So if you didn't have a sea ranch, then you want to have a sea ranch type issue, maybe, or your sewer district thing or whatever it is. Something that's going to pull people into that meeting and demonstrate to them that, hey, the MAC cares about us. So how are we doing? That sound like it'll work? No.
Yeah, I'd like to try it. Yeah. Try a couple. I mean, meaning the off cycle or.
Yeah, and if it works, great. If it doesn't work,
well, we'll learn something.
But yeah, outreach.
We'll know better what to try next.
Yeah.
You're on my support if you want me there, and if I can make it. But you may not want me there, too.
No,
so either way.
No, but this issue about the road, like, one of the things that hasn't been happening in my size, people lost personally, is that the information, we'll hear about something.
I remember actually, it's
They
part of
won't
education.
capture it in a way that we know what the outcome is. Like, for example, that road that I talked about, I mean, there was never any right of way. That's the very first time I'm hearing this, and I've heard so many complaints about this one. It wasn't, so how was that so important for so long?
It's like, it's something
Surprised how often that happens in this county, we're just working on the road and there's like, or we're not working on a road and we found out we don't own it.
Is that right?
Oh, like Freeze Out Road, I just found out we own it, so I gotta pay for it. Yeah.
Nice.
Freeze Out Road. For years, we've said we don't own that road, then I looked at a map and said, we own that road.
Wow, okay, so this is not a unique
No, it
one-off
happens
thing.
all over.
Okay, well, this is my first time here, so, but that kind of thing, if it's possible, should happen, you know, there is some, you know, we should.
But I think but I do think there's this fine line.
Yeah.
And you know, the moderator of the workshop at one point, you know, said, you know, I appreciate all of you Mackers being very enthusiastic and wanting to do this, but I'm paraphrasing, you're volunteers who weren't elected. You know, I mean, in the sense of, we can listen, but I mean, I don't, you know, this is why you asked the question, should we be there or not? The inclination is yes, because you have more information than we do. And I think, you know, that's gonna be the tricky part in the sense of all we can really do is listen. I mean, you know, we're not, we can't fix the problem per se. We can elevate it a little bit, maybe.
Yes, definitely elevating from the concerns.
Yeah, yeah.
I heard from quite a few people about that road, but the outcome is not known.
No, or the, there's lots of misinformation, you know, that it's, and that may be, that frankly, as we talk about a topic for the official MAC meeting. If it is true that there were 15 or 20 people that wanted to talk about this, well, I think we got one.
Yeah, and I'm surprised, nobody told me that they were going there, or I didn't.
No, I didn't know that. Well,
You know, so anyway.
I just say C ranch is a unique beast because we have board meetings every other week. I serve on the board. I can tell you exactly what the hot button issue is. If okay, and Linda were to show up for a meeting, I can tell you exactly what we get. Well, they'll get it. And there's a few people that are passionate. I'll leave it as a topic for a meeting.
John, would you take a shot at an issue?
Yeah, let me, I mean, I'm not, this is not tabula rasa, I'm gonna pick, I've got the one from 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and I think you must have, I think you would say. No, one of the authors.
No, it wasn't me, because I wrote only got for about a year.
All right, well,
So
anyway,
it would be good, and I
I'll
think,
get something, well, I'll do it in a Google Doc. I assume we can share something like that without any, I mean, it's just commission.
I mean, that's not something you can be voting on. It's something that you can, I mean, if we're worried about it, send it to me directly and I can send it.
Maybe that'll be the thing, and then you can do it in a Google Doc and everybody can contribute. We don't, because we may want to adopt it. We may, I mean,
I mean, it could be the general topic.
So yeah, I'll take a crack.
And I think it would be helpful, because, you know, I'm sitting here listening to this, I think George and I can write an article in one of our communication vehicles to educate our membership. And I think if you pull this C range member, my guess is that on a 2,000 lot owner, 2,200 lot owners, probably 3 or 4 know that MAC does.
That's Marty, who's retired.
You're expanding our sphere.
Many relatives in the household, yeah. Right.
So yeah, I think it would be good just to explain for us to be able to explain what the MAC does and you know,
And why
it was formed.
Why it was formed and why we think it's valuable. Why is it, what is it
Part of it's introducing ourselves, and I don't mean ourselves individually, reintroducing.
And the LCP kind of blotted out the sun for so long. You know, that was all we heard as Marty Campbell was our rep. That's all we heard about was what was going on with the LCP.
But I think, you know, what Scott is saying, for me, really speaks true, because like when I started the MAC, this is what we did, was brought those community issues. And it wasn't like just that, you know, that one government issue. It was like, hey, let's talk about our nonprofits. Let's bring in other speakers, historians, to like educate people about the area that they're in before we start with our presenters. So I think you guys are starting something, or restarting something, if I can say, that is really vibrant and really exciting. So I'm really stoked you're all doing this. Okay.
But I don't really see much of a difference.
I took it.
So good to see you.
I volunteered.
Yeah, really, really good to see you. And we'll keep fighting for, yes, and you as well, and we'll keep fighting for the ice house. Someday it will happen. It will happen.
All right.
That, and still
Okay.
thinking about, you know, the voice.
Together.
Well,
Right.
you know,
I'm gonna figure out something
And
for
that
that
was-
voice.
Yeah.
You know, we just need to do something to protect the environment out there.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
Okay, awesome. See you later. Have a good night, Dick. Take care.
And just wanted to know, wanted to say that it's probably it's a Friday. How does that most people?
You can take it there.
Throw something out there.
Yeah.
At
Today's rally.
Yeah, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, that Assemblyman Mike Rogers is coming to.
Chris Rogers.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Chris Mike.
I know. There's Mike Thompson converted, it's all.
Yeah, you're right. It's,
Yeah.
he's coming to Sea Ranch next Friday on the 28th.
Oh, that's great.
That's
really good.
The owl is just getting you friends.
What?
The owl is
Oh.
just getting you guys. It's all right.
Okay, we can move that so that we're not. Being
I
recorded.
think this is, a lot of this is gonna come out and you're putting together
Yeah,
a mission statement. Because it's-
I'll do it.
You know, we don't have any authority to actually do anything, but we have standing. We have standing in the community, and the community needs to know that we are their conduit. to kind of get, You know, good news or bad news.
Okay, so I mean, it's.
Okay, so the action item you had was to discuss to make a decision about the schedule. So what is this, March?
Yeah.
Yes.
May would be the next one, and that's in Bodega Bay.
Right, unless we're like down.
Do we want to go to actual Bodega?
Can I get some history on that real quick?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, so, traditionally what we've done is, you know, started at Sea Ranch, worked our way down the coast, Fort Ross Timber Cove, Jenner, Bodega Bay, Bodega, and then started back at Sea Ranch. And it's been a rotation just for, you know, geographic equity. That had brought this up to say, like, you know, do we want to mix that up at all? Do we want to change things for different population centers? And so that's how this got on the discussion table. Now it's up to you all to decide.
Well, it would be nice if in the summertime, we had the polar opposites of the coast as the meeting points because it stays light.
Yeah.
Longer, and in the wintertime, more the center of gravity to the coast.
Actually, that's a great suggestion.
Okay, so well, in January, we had it in Timber Cove, which is in the middle.
Yeah.
March, we're having it here,
Here.
which is slightly south.
May would be in Bodega Bay.
Okay.
So June, July, I think we could probably skip Bodega Valley Ford and come back to them as under the previous chair, we didn't have them in the rotation. So I don't think that would be problematic. We would need to check with Beth. Well, we have to have an action item, she's not here, so I would, you know, if we wanted to skip that, we can skip Bodega Bay Valley Ford, start back at Timber Cove, or sorry, Sea Ranch in June. Work our way back, and then that would be our new rotation. And if we need to adjust with the months and they mess with us, which they will at some point, yeah, we can just kind of choose where we need to jump through.
There's one hitch, and I will not be here in July.
Okay. Well, you have two of them.
There's two of us.
Yeah.
Write down your stuff and I'll bring it up.
We're not gonna zoom in from France, Scott?
Ages.
Yeah.
I just wanna let you guys know that I texted my sister in Oregon, and she was like that. Just to let you know that the people service.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi is great, huh?
What is the one? Because I can't see it.
It's equal. I can't see it. Did you leave it open for a while?
Yes.
Well, I'll leave
It's
it
not
at
as
that.
stronger as, it was really strong when you announced it and then it disappeared. Everybody's gone.
Everybody logged off.
Everybody's gone, it's back up.
Yeah, my daughter has been moved in.
Okay, so can, someone like to make a motion that we, make that schedule then?
So is the motion to have the May meeting in the Big Bay and the July meeting in Sea Ranch? And then the September meeting,
And then we just continue the rotation down with those. Two. Come back.
Timber Cove.
Timber Cove in September. And then November would be back
Back here.
in Jenner. November.
Okay, so Bodega Bay is gonna be.
May. It'll be our next meeting.
Yeah, next meeting.
And is it always is it typically the third Thursday? Is that?
Yes, that has been the,
Yeah, and I mean.
okay, so I can make a motion that we figured out the schedule for 2025.
Hey.
May, Bodega Bay, July, Sea Ranch, September, Timber Cove, and November, Jenner.
Excellent.
Okay,
That's your motion?
that's my motion.
Second.
I've
There,
motioned.
and there's a second.
Sorry.
Second. Yeah, PRC, the other side. All in favor? Motion passes. Great.
And I will need a motion to move the chair report to the May meeting. She's not present.
Yeah, I should have taken that on.
That's all right.
And then one question about that is the time. Are we sticking to the same time at every meeting? Well, there was a motion to move it around the different times of the.
How about we
That
decide?
was a little problematic.
I thought it was problematic too.
Because I work in Bodega Bay, so then we have to go to Roswell.
Well, we can, let's, we can modify that
They are not happy.
as we get to those meetings.
Yes, okay, that's fine. I just wanted
You know, I mean, if it looks like there's gonna be a problem, we need to move it back to 6:30 or whatever. We can do that.
Or if, for some reason we need to open a digital room, we can do it. We just need a backup as we discovered, and then we'll take care of it. Thank you, George. You're a rock star.
What?
The backup last time, so we could have our.
I had a great time.
So then our meeting in Bodega Bay will start at 5:30. Okay. I just want to be clear.
Make sure report,
And then Sea Ranch would be the same.
unless we decide something else.
Okay, until further notice. Yeah, okay.
It's just that we get some less kind of very.
So we need a motion to, move the chair report to our next meeting. So move. Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Last chance, anybody want to go on the record? Nope. Let's call the meeting done.